So, welcome to the Busy Mum Show, the show to help you and your family thrive. I'm your host, Dr. Leonaura Rhodes, and I'm so delighted that you're joining me on this, the very first Busy Mum Show, with my very special guest, who I hope you can all see, Bill Poett. I'm going to introduce Bill in a couple of minutes, but first I just want to tell you a little bit more about the show and about me and the concept of the Busy Mum Show. So the Busy Mum Show for me is the latest in my journey of personal development. My journey in personal development began about 13 years ago. I was mother of two children who had both been extremely sick, and both of them nearly died. And I found myself in a very dark place where I was very stressed, unhappy, extremely unhealthy, and I hadn't met my own needs for quite a long time. I wasn't having fun. I was unhappy. I was extremely unhealthy. I mean, I was out of breath all the time because I was putting on weight, and it was a bad time. And I discovered a book that was to change my life, and the book was called The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. And from this book I learned that pain and loss are inevitable parts of life, but that suffering is a choice. And I also learned that happiness is a choice too, and that happiness comes from within us, not from what's going on in our lives and not from the things that we have. And the other thing that I learned is that we always have control over our own destiny to a greater or lesser extent, depending on what's going on in our life. And that was extremely empowering for me. And I became kind of a bit obsessed with learning about personal development. My other obsession is neuroscience, and so I've spent the last 13 years combining my medical knowledge with personal development and learning from the best in the fields. And I have been coaching mothers for quite a long time, and I decided I was going to write a book. And my book, I just have the cover. Here's my book, Beyond Soccer Mum, Strategies for a Fabulous Balanced Life. And it's the best of what I've learned in my over 20 years as a physician, coach, neuroscience expert, and strategic intervention trainer. And my book's coming out in a couple of weeks. And the book is my view on personal development and tools that can help people enhance their life. But the concept of the Busy Mum Show is to reach out to other experts, and I'm lucky enough to be part of a very big community of amazing experts. And so the Busy Mum Show is going to bring you advice, and I'll get you to meet other wonderful experts out there who can help you improve your life. And so our first expert is Bill Poett, and I met Bill through one of these expert groups that I was telling you about, and I started following Bill's work, and it really resonated with me. It was about connecting with your authentic self, and about connecting back with nature, which is where we all come from. And I've taken one of Bill's online courses, and while he's not a mother, he is a devoted family man, and as parents we all have a huge amount to learn from Bill and his work. So here's his official bio. Bill is a nationally acclaimed transformational guide, author, corporate facilitator, radio personality, and founder of the Warrior Heart Project. For over 30 years, Bill has worked as a peak performance expert, training members of America's most elite military, corporate, and athletic teams. So my first welcome, Bill. Thank you so much for being part of.
Excuse me, I'm so thrilled and honored to be one of the first guests on the Mom Show. And I'm not a mom, as is very apparent, but I have 3 daughters. And for the last 20 years, 80% of my clients have been moms. So I have a very selfish motivation in raising empowered daughters, and I love what I have learned from and been able to do for moms. So thank you for having me on the show. It's really thrilling.
Absolute pleasure. We all have so much to learn from you. So my first question for you, Bill, is could you tell us about your journey from trainer for the military to founding the Warrior Heart Project?
Well, it's a great question. It's a long journey, so I'll do my best to shrink it. 25 years ago, I was a close quarter combat instructor, and my specialty was knife fighting. I have over 11 degrees of black belt, and it was my job to prepare young men physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually to go into the worst environments imaginable, and most importantly, not lose their souls in the process. And I was really blessed because in conventional military, we teach our boys how to hurt, but we don't teach them how to heal, and we don't teach them how to grieve, and we don't teach them how to re-engage. And because I was more a specialist working with members of special teams, we really got to address the moral and emotional implications of that kind of violence and the damage it does to you. And that was a huge part of the work. You know, I believe with all of my heart that it is impossible to hurt another human being without being hurt. Just as it is impossible to uplift and elevate another human being without being uplifted and elevated. And so my career began as a specialist working with special teams. Obviously, when your life is on the line, you have to be a peak performer. So I really got spoiled. And I didn't know I was spoiled until I started working with corporations and organizations and individuals outside of that world. Because if I was doing a training and the training started at 6:30 a.m., my team would show up. I mean, they'd be there by 6:10. They'd be fully geared up. They'd be prepared for themselves and other people. And so I started getting requests from corporations and other teams and individuals. Well, God, Bill, I love what you do with leadership. I love how you drive performance in people. Would you come out to my organization? And I had this wild reality check because, you know, we'd have a 9 a.m. training and people would come strolling in at 9:05, 9:10. They'd have a cup of coffee in their hand and they didn't have that level of engagement. They didn't have that level of commitment. And then it was 2 years ago. So for 25 years, let me backpedal. I've been a peak performance trainer for 25 years, and I have always had wildly varying degrees of success, which has driven me insane. So two clients hire me. They say, I want movement. I want to change my life. I want more love, abundance, success, whatever it is they want. I come in, I gift them with everything I have, and I get two completely different results. One person's life gets radically transformed. The other person's life doesn't change at all. And so, you know, I think it's the great frustration of all guides, all teachers, and all educators. 2 years ago, I found out on Facebook that a friend of mine had died, and he had been a friend and a peer. And it was a random happening. I was just trolling through Facebook and said the martial arts industry has been greatly lessened today. I explored a little bit more. I found out that this had been a friend of mine and an associate. He was 54 years old, beautiful wife, 6-year-old son. And you had mentioned having sick children, and you know what these shatterings feel like, and I was shattered. A few hours later, I got a phone call from a mutual friend of ours, and I found out that my friend had killed himself. And I've had a couple dealings with suicide, and suicide is, I think, one of the most horrific acts of all humanity. And so and this man, excuse me, he owned 5 of the most successful martial arts schools in the country. He was brilliant. He could spout the Dalai Lama, Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, Deepak Chopra. He had all the knowledge in the world, and yet he didn't have enough to sustain his life. So that was sort of shattering number 2. The third shattering happened a few hours later when I was called back by our same friend. My friend was going to be arrested the next morning as a serial child molester. Oh, he had been abusing members of his academies for years. So you can imagine I'm devastated. Each level has stripped away whatever barriers I had. And I was scheduled for a radio show the next morning that I do every week for this one station. And I get on as America's coach, and I'm the motivating, inspiring guy, and I couldn't do it. And I told the DJ, I said, will you let me grieve on the air? And he's a good friend of mine, and it was live. So he said, yeah. And so for about 10 minutes, I shared my anger and my hurt and my rage and pain. And it was one of the most popular shows we'd ever done. We got emails from all over the country of people saying, thank you. Thank you for having that conversation. And I got off the air. I started pacing around the house, and my wife looked at me and she said, honey, you need to leave. You need to go back out into nature, because she knows this is where I heal and this is where I reconnect. And it was interesting. It was Father's Day weekend, and my eldest daughter was in New York, and my youngest daughter was only 4, and my middle daughter was at her dad's house. So I kind of had a window, and I said, okay, I'm going to go. And I went up into Yosemite, which is about 5 hours away from my home. It's one of the most beautiful, sacred spaces on earth. And I remember getting in my car, and I was in rage. And I was in rage with God. And I wanted to know why everyone is suffering. I mean, you've given me a tiny window about what it was like for you as a mother with these 2 sick children. And I look around me in my life, and I lost my sister when she was 46, and my first wife when she was 42. And there's so much suffering, and there's so much pain in the world. And I was in a rage. And it was about a 5-hour drive to Yosemite, and I made a commitment. God was going to give me an answer, and I wasn't coming back until I got one. And I'm not a good person to fight with. I'm fairly competent. So as I got closer to Yosemite, the road, it becomes one of those windy 2-lane mountain roads. There are all these little roadside crosses. And I don't know if they have them in Canada, but, where people die, people make these little shrines. Every one of those shrines enraged me even more, because that was another shattered life. It was someone's child or mother or husband or father. So my rage is rising. And the beautiful thing about Yosemite is you're up in the high Sierras, and you go through a tunnel. And the tunnel is almost a mile long. And in my second book, Live and Love Fearlessly, I describe this process. I call it the womb. So I go into this dark tunnel, and I'm full of rage and anger. And when you come out on the other side, it is breathtakingly glorious. And that was the first thing that hit me, was even though I was in this rage, I was now in awe. And I continued into the park, and I was going to meet a friend to do some rock climbing. And I had all day, and I had all this angst, and I knew I had to move it out of my body. So I picked Yosemite Falls, which is one of the toughest hikes there. And I'm powering up the mountain, and I stop, and tears start streaming down my face. I was just hit with this wave of grief, and I sat down, and I realized that the last time I had been on this trail was exactly 20 years ago, Father's Day. And I had been with my first wife, who had since died, and she was pregnant, and I didn't know she was pregnant. So we hiked to the top of the falls. We went to the Ahwahnee that night, and she gave me baby booties wrapped up for Father's Day. And that's how I found out I was going to be a dad. And so I got to the top of the falls, and I sat down overlooking this, and I prayed as hard as I've ever prayed. And it was a cellular prayer. God, why are you breaking our hearts? Why is there so much suffering? And sitting on this mountain, I got an answer which really rocked me and has changed my life and thousands of other people's life. And the answer I got is, stop and listen. Look at what you are feeling. I didn't break your heart. I shattered the walls you've built around your heart in an effort to hide from me. And I sat there on this mountain, I looked around, and the truth is I was feeling more than I had felt in 10 years. I was feeling awe and grief and joy and sorrow, and my heart was completely naked, and it was open and exposed. And I had this revelation. 20 years earlier, I was in Japan with this brilliant grand master in his late 70s, and we'd been training with him all day, and he'd been playing with us like with a cat playing with balls of yarn. And we sat like pups around him and said, Sensei, what does it mean to be a warrior? I didn't understand the answer at the time. I did on this mountain. He said, a warrior has the capacity to have their hearts broken endlessly and never build a wall around it. And so in that moment, the Warrior Heart Project was born. And the recognition that I had is we aren't suffering from a lack of information. We've never had access to more information. You and I can hit Google and get any question answered. We're not suffering from a lack of opportunity. We're suffering because we have been hurt, we've been betrayed, and we've built these walls around our hearts. And our hearts are the energetic drivers of our life. So 25 years ago, when I was working with the Navy SEALs, there's no such thing as a half-assed Navy SEAL. Yeah. Navy SEALs are all in. They show up. They're fully engaged. But I would work with a CEO or a mom or a father, and they don't know how to be all in. Because every time we get hurt, we have a heart attack, a literal, and when I say heart attack, it's a loss, it's a betrayal, it's something that happens to us. Since we don't know how to grieve, and since we don't know how to heal, we build walls. And the tragedy is we think these walls are protecting us, and they're not. You and I both know the world has never been in more pain. So we try to medicate it, and we drink too much, and we shop too much, and we exercise too much. And so that was the revelation, and the joy in the work that I do now is I still have all of those peak performance tools. Yeah. But the first thing I've got to do is I've got to show you how to grieve, how to heal, and how to open your heart. Because my life can never expand beyond my heart's capacity to love. And so I apologize for the long-winded answer, but that's how the Warrior Heart Project came to be. And that's how I transitioned from a close quarter combat instructor into the founder of the Warrior Heart Project.
That's an amazing story, Bill. And I think we all have our, if we're lucky, we have our awakenings or our aha moments, or your Yosemite moment. And if we're lucky, we have them before there's been too much damage done. I've had a couple of those in my life where something's happened, or I've lost somebody close to me, and that's been the moment. But I've also been lucky. I've had some of those moments through personal development. And if you can have them without having to face all that grief and loss, and still take those steps to make your life better, then that's a great thing to be able to do. And the work that you're doing allows people to do that without necessarily having to go through all of the grief. You can go through that transformation without the grief.
100%. There's something called the truth of the blade. And the beauty of knife fighting, which sounds like an oxymoron, is as an educator, the lag time between choice and consequence is instantaneous. Yeah. So there's no theory. We know right now what's honest. We know what now is true. So part of my work has been to sift through all of the valueless information. And you and I both know, I hate to say it, 80 to 90% of what is being taught doesn't work. Yeah. It's theory, it's hyperbole, it is not valid information. So I need to sift through that information to find out what's true. Then, by connecting every thought, word, and deed to its destination, I can make better choices. And you're right, I don't want a person to have to wait till their lives are shattered to have that realization. Yeah. We are always on a path. And if I can connect to that destination, and that destination is guaranteed, I don't want the person to wait to have the heart attack before they make the shifts in their diet. Yep. I don't want the divorce to happen before a person goes into counseling. And the beauty of what you and I are doing as guides is these are tools. These are processes that will let you identify where you are, what's working, what isn't, and let's get your life on track now. Because there is what I call essential natural suffering or pain, and then there's the self-inflicted kind. I've watched two babies come into the world. Life comes with pain, but the massive amounts of joy that are attached to that are unbelievable. But it's the self-inflicted The fear, the doubt, the worry, the walking on false trails that I really believe you and I are here to help alleviate, and that's the joy of what we do.
Absolutely. That's great. So, Bill, my next question for you is, you use a tool in your coaching called the True North Compass.
Yes.
It's quite complicated, but could you just touch upon that for us and explain to us what that tool is? And
Absolutely. And the truth is, it's a really simple tool. We talk about theory, and when I do a workshop, Dr. Covey wrote a great book, 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person. And in the book, 90% of the people who go to my seminars have read his book. And they think it's a great, and I'll say, okay, how many of you can name the 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person? Nobody's hand goes up. Yeah. So as a trainer, I've got to get people to assimilate the knowledge, to own the information. The True North Compass, I've read, as you have, hundreds of books on theory and religion and philosophy. There's only one place in life I have never been lied to, and that's nature. Nature is incapable of telling a lie. And so I went back to the pre-Socratic model of how the universe works. And there's 5 elements: the void, earth, water, fire, and wind. And these 5 elements make up us. They make up the world around us. They are how the universe works. And so the compass is a process that we use every day, that you can prove, that you can quantify, that is the creative flow of life. And it's real simple. The void, you can call it God, ether, the quantum field. It's limitless. You and I are limitless. We could be anywhere doing anything. Earth, the first element, is very defined. It's very clear. It's very quantifiable. So step 1, you imagine. Stop what you're doing and imagine the most beautiful life you can. In the earth element, we define it. You set a clear, concrete goal. The water element represents our intellect. The water element is the realm of training. We call it your ATR. Goals don't fail us. We fail our goals. And wishing and visualizing will not get you to the top of Mount Everest. You have to train physically and emotionally, spiritually. So in the water element, we do our training. The fire element is our heart, our emotion. Here's where we engage. Here's where we learn how to forgive, how to grieve, how to heal, how to become all in. And then the wind element is movement, freedom of motion. So you and I get up every day and we make sure we're living in joy and we're moving our lives forward. And then we always end by coming back into the void, and we stop and we reflect, because the truth lies in nature and it lies in you. What's working? What isn't? What needs improvement? And so these 5 elements are earth, water, fire, wind, void. You and I are made up of those. My physical body is my earth. My fluid is my waters. My emotions are my fire energy. My respiratory system is my wind. My soul is my void. So I teach this compass as a model, and I teach it to organizations and individuals so that I can drive my life forward in joy. And the transformation that I've seen in the last 2 years has been radical, and it's so much fun.
That's wonderful, and that resonates with the work that I do, and I really believe that people can make a choice about consciously creating a life that will make, and the terms that I use is happy, healthy, successful, and abundant, and we can. Why not choose to go for those things? Why not consciously create your life so that you'll have all of those things in your life? And rather than just drifting through life, letting things happen to us, which is what so many of us end up doing. And can you share a couple of activities that we could all do either alone or with our families that would kind of start us off on the path to...
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here's the #1 mantra all of my clients own. And when I say own it cellularly. I am worthy. Your capacity to say that and to own it and to expand it will determine your life. It's the energetic chalice that your life fits within. And everyone is born with a limitless amount of worth. We're all brilliant, perfect children of the universe. Your fingerprints prove it. Your DNA prove it. You are worthy of the most beautiful life imaginable. So employ that mantra. That's number one. Number two, begin every day with active forgiveness. We must begin in forgiveness because each day is a do-over. The sun comes up and nature's saying, hey, I don't care what happened yesterday. Let it go. Leave it behind you. Today is brand new. My clients will say, well, I've never done this before. And I'll say, you have never existed before. Cellularly, on a microbiotic level, today I'm a brand new being. And by practicing active forgiveness every single day, forgiving everyone that has ever hurt you, forgiving yourself for everyone that you've ever hurt, stepping out of fear and into love, and then active gratitude. Those three things, if I begin, and I do this, I have a ritual every morning. First thing I do is I just take a few breaths and I celebrate. I am worthy. And then I go right into active forgiveness. Just a little mantra. I forgive everyone that has ever hurt me. I forgive myself for everyone I've ever hurt. I step out of fear and into love. I am free. I am whole. I am worthy. That daily ritual opens up possibility. Leave the ghosts and shadows and resentments of the past where they belong, in the past. And so that's just a real simple thing that all of us can do, because I'm here to free up your power, to unleash your genius. And I can't do it if I'm walking around with 20 years of regret strapped to my back.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing, Bill. So people who are listening or watching, how can they find out more about the work that you do?
Well, I have on my website, we have a virtual academy, which is so exciting. I have people training in Canada and Australia and South America. And if you go to billpoett.com, there's a lot of free training and resources. And then there's the True North Academy. And if you're interested in learning how to use the True North compass, how to heal a broken heart, and how to really connect with your soul purpose and genius, that's a great place to go. I do live trainings, interactive trainings. It's open 24/7. So it's a wonderful hub for people who want to celebrate life, embrace life. And all the moms out there, I know we have just a minute left. You have been told to give everything away. And in doing so, you often lose yourself. And your children, you can't teach a child how to be in joy and in their purpose unless you know how to be in joy and in your purpose. Yeah. So the time you spend working on you moms is the best investment you will ever make in you and your families. That's my love to all the moms in the world, because I love the moms of the world. I had a great mom.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your generosity, being on the call, and your wisdom. And everybody should go and check out Bill's website. There is a lot of free training on there that I've watched a lot of your videos, and it's really amazing stuff. So thank you so much, Bill.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing, and great success with your book. I'm thrilled. If there's anything I can do to facilitate you or any moms out there, please reach out.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us live on the call. The video is going to be up on YouTube when I've done some editing, and available as a podcast as well. So, so go out there. I urge you all, go out there and start creating a fabulous life for you and your family. This is me, Leonaura Rhodes, and this is the Busy Mom Show. Bye for now.
Namaste.
Namaste.